Welcome everybody back to this episode of VISTV. I am Joan Viscardi and I am very happy to introduce today Brooke Evans. Brooke is an independent loan officer, and I've asked Brooke to sit down with me today to talk about our continued conversation on wellness. Before we begin, I would like to make a comment and give the condolences and our best to those families that were impacted with the mass shootings recently. I don't think we as a company at Viscardi can talk about wellness without recognizing what's happening in society. And I really hope, Brooke, that we can talk about how do we make the workplace better and how do we individually take care of ourselves mentally and physically. So welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm very humbled by the experience. So thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you. So you're a loan officer. First, not to go into details of what that means, but the sound of it alone sounds stressful. I know you deal then with finances, the corporate world, individuals. You are, as I understand, independent now. So tell me a little bit about your past experience and why you moved out of it and into the independent world.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a loaded one, so I'll try to make it brief. I'm sure you can imagine.
Oh, take your time. Take your time.
Okay. Well, I was working in big bank. I basically started in escrow and title, and then I moved over to the mortgage side about 10 years ago. And so I had about 10 years of experience at a few different big banks, 3 in particular. I had revisited or started my career with one big bank, and then I ended my career at big bank with that same institution. And what happened was I actually had my son in 2020, at the beginning of 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And that really helped to change my perspective on a lot of things. I realized that time is the most valuable currency that we have. And I mean, money comes and goes, right? We can do all we need to earn, but we have the same amount of time. And or I guess not the same amount, but it's valuable for everybody, right? And so I just decided that I really wanted to dedicate more of my efforts, my work efforts, at having a more authentic relationship. So we spend so much of our time at work, right? Sometimes, especially if you're working a lot of overtime and work on the weekends, like I often do for my clients, a lot of that time is spent with work and my clients rather than with my family. And so I realized that it's really just important to have that authentic relationship. And I wanted that to carry over from not just my personal life and my familial life, but over to my professional life. And if I could do that, that would help me to be more happy, right? And more well overall, my mental health, my physical health, everything. And if I am also ultimately a happier person and a healthier person, then that'll just carry over to my other relationships. And so that was something that I was really striving to do, and something that I felt I was lacking in the corporate world. You know, the team that I was on was pretty negative, right? So no matter how good you produced or how well you produced, there was always a strive for more and more and more. And I just felt like they were making me feel smaller than I actually was, or what my contributions were. And I didn't think that that was good for my overall mental health, you know? And so I just was like, you know, you only live once. And so I've got to try this independent thing and see how I can do in that realm of mortgage.
And so it's an interesting field that you're in, you know, banking in general, whether it's loans, whatever sector of the banking industry, it has stress in and of itself. How did you transition from the corporate world to being independent and maintain, as you say, your wellness? How do you maintain, I assume you're working remotely. Although many people are working remotely now, particularly since the pandemic, how do you maintain that wellness and that sense of self and maintain those relationships? Because I really like what you said about relationships. It's very important that our relationships are communicated well, that we communicate a positivity to others and receive it back. How do you maintain that when you're working alone, when you're at home?
Well, I think, again, kind of going back to the time thing, I noticed a lot of my time when I was commuting to the office was spent getting ready and then commuting because I live in Los Angeles. And so a lot of that time has been kind of put back in my bucket, right? And so that's helped me to realign it. So now I work out in the morning before my son wakes up, and I try to keep my physical and mental health paramount, right? And the transition over to the independent side has just realized, or helped me to realize, that my time is my own now. And so there's so much more autonomy and flexibility, because I would spend so much time on the corporate side dealing with compliance and all the minutia, right, which is necessary in such a bureaucratic environment. But all of that time is basically reallocated to how I want to use it. So I can just spend much more of it working on building my business and in a more positive environment, you know.
I like how you talk about time, which I find interesting, without using the word management. I often think, as a society, we hear so much about time management. We hear about multitasking. How do you cram much more into a day? How do you manage it? Yet your ease of even speaking of it and relating the words to the concept of time, tell me you have kind of found that equilibrium, that ability to manage it the best of your ability.
I think for me personally, it's like a work in progress. Coming from like the corporate world now, since time is my own and things move much faster on my end. So getting a bearing of how my workflow is going to be every day is still something that I'm working on, honestly. But I guess that's part of why I wanted to go more independent too, is because I can create a different conversation and change the language around what I do, right? So, and that includes time. So a lot of times, mortgage and everything can be so transactional and so cold, and not really authentic, right? It's like very step 1, 2, 3 and get you through the process. And now on this side, it's just trying to have more human connection with my clients and with the people that I work with, and more genuine connection, I suppose. And that again goes with the language. I try to be very mindful of the words that I choose, because it's so important, to how we converse with ourselves and subsequently those around us.
It's very true. It's that positivity. What do you think the corporate world could have done better to maintain that authenticity or that positive approach? Looking back, we do forensic audits in my business a lot. Looking back, what could you suggest that could have been different, or maybe better? And maybe for the people listening, we work in the insurance industry, maybe the people listening could take a little tips from.
Yeah, that's also a great question. I feel like it kind of goes back to the company culture. A lot of times you can say, oh, this is our employee handbook. These are our values. These are our goals. This is our mission statement. But at the end of the day, the actions speak louder than the words. So I think it really just starts with having a core belief system that is true, that is honest, and is cultivated throughout the rest of the company. It really has to start from the top and work its way down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the missions and values of a company, they can be one thing on paper. It's how they're articulated, in day to day. I know even at our company that's small, and we work really hard to try to promote wellness, whatever that means to individuals. Our definition of wellness, wellness can be internal, external, it can be physical, it can be mental. And how do we, as a company, promote that? Especially now that we've moved, we're back as a hybrid company. But as we move remotely, I think it's really important for people to understand, whether we work independent as consultants or in corporations, that wellness has to be at the forefront. I think as a society are moving more and more toward it, but it's words, it's semantics. If we don't act upon it, it's very difficult. How do you individually at home build relationships with your clients, with those you're working with, that are positive, remotely. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, that is a challenge. I'd say more so with clients, right? It's also with what I do, there's a huge level of trust, right? So very similar to how you'd go to a doctor or to an attorney where you're seeking their professional expertise. It's very similar with what I do, especially because it's intrusive, right? I'm looking at your income, your assets, your credit, everything about your um, fiscal profile, right? And it can be a lot. And so it is a challenge, but it's also something that I've done for years, and so a lot of it is really trying to have those conversations at the beginning and actually through each step of the process, like, okay, this is how we're going to approach it. How do you feel about that? Right? Like, how are you feeling about the process? Are there any concerns that you can share with me? And then I also share my own personal experiences. I've been doing this for 10 years, and then, like I said, I purchased my own home. And so there's a lot of empathy and a lot of connection that I try to bring into that helps to build that trust, I suppose. And just have that constant flow of positive language, right, and selective language as in building those relationships. But it's nice to have that flexibility, I suppose, because I wasn't able to be as free with my conversations when I was working in corporate America. Yeah, so it's easier to build relationships with other centers of influence, like real estate partners and CPAs and such, because I can go meet them. That's a little bit easier than building one-on-one clients and meeting each individual client, in person, especially when they're in different parts of the state or country or what have you. So
Definitely. I mean, it's opened up a whole new world literally to us, remote work, but I think you hit the nail on the head, using the word feelings and using the word empathy. So many people shy away from talking about feelings and being empathetic, yet how do we maintain our wellness? It's all about how we feel. It's all about how we make someone else feel. It's all about understanding and kind of getting in the shoes of whoever it is that we're working with. At our company, it's many patients, claimants, what do they feel at the time? It's their employers. How do their employers feel about them? How do they feel about their employers? It's then the insurance company. How is the insurance company managing it? But it's the trickle effect of feelings. So I think it's your positivity. I really commend the positivity that even in your discussion about your position now, you're very positive. And I think it's really important, not just for us to be positive, but to hear the other side.
Yeah, thank you so much. And some days are harder than others. They are for everybody, right? But overall, if the overall sense is positive, it's like I feel like I'm using my time wisely, and I really want to contribute to my clients. I mean, buying a home or refinancing your home, it's where you spend all your time. That's where you build your memories. There's so much emotion in that place and in that space. How can you not engage the feelings in it, right? And to just, again, have that deeper connection and conversation is just so important. And it's true. It's so honest. And that's part of what I love about it is it's like, okay, let's help you feel comfortable and find the decision or help educate you to make an educated decision. But also, how do you feel about the process as we're moving through it? Would you feel more comfortable with X, Y, or Z, and explore your options? And very similar in your industry, it's really starting from that emotional aspect and recognizing that and then finding a solution for the client.
Exactly. I think irregardless of where we work or who we work for, or whether we work for ourselves, trust and honesty is so important. How can we respect somebody's feelings if we don't really provide a trustful, honest platform, to just start that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually funny because I have started exploring this more and more as I'm building my business, and it's interesting how some people kind of shy away from the conversation. And I think that's embedded in our society a little bit. People don't want to talk about how it's making them feel and they want to shy away from the emotional aspect of it. But it's also very important to recognize because that's what drives a lot of the conversation. That's what drives a lot of the decision making, and when it comes to your home and everything. You want it to be emotional, but you also need it to be a very responsible decision. So you got to have both sides and balance it out, right?
Oh, exactly. I think if we take the time to be thoughtful and trust our relationships, provide that honest platform for people to reciprocate, we could build a much better work environment for sure.
Absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, and not to mention, we could expand it into society. It would be great.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like if we can, I guess that's my own little piece, is how can I make my own positive contribution to the world, and if I can start with the home, someone else's home, that's such a tremendous honor and privilege,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
Well, I'm going to end it there because you really, you're heartwarming to the spirit. It is a privilege to speak to you, but I think if we can enter into communication and responding to and from, back and forth when we communicate, wellness can improve if we look at it as privilege. It is a privilege, to be here, work with others, to develop our own work environment. And whatever the work is, whether you're helping a new homeowner or my work with patients or my nurses work with patients is to help the patient, we have to be honest. We have to allow the communication. We have to feel, and we have to be honest. And I think if we can all take away from that, we could create a much healthier work environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Personal environment, right? Personal wellness.
Yeah.
And then that kind of trickles out to everything else, like you said. And it's nice to be able to build that, you as a self-employed person as well, like you can harness that in your own company, and that's an amazing opportunity.
And I think we have to think about it every day. I think what we lose track of is we start the work week on a Monday. Many of us don't end it on a Friday, but we're looking already at the next Monday and what can we cram in? What can we accomplish? What do we want to succeed in? But we have to stop. We actually have to stop, and take a deep breath and really take the time, as you said, to recognize where we are at this moment.
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to intention, right? Like make intentional decisions and be mindful, which is a challenge to do, especially in the hustle and bustle of life. But if you can achieve it just a few times a day, I really think that it's better overall, and hopefully others can feel that as well.
Yeah. Hopefully the people that came on to listen and visit us today on VISTV, take that with them, Let's just all take the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Brooke.
No, thank you.
Pleasure.
Likewise, it's
pleasure
such an honor.
to you.
You too.